the historical approach that we've had with addiction is we do harm reduction. So harm reduction is you have a heroin addict, somebody who's completely addicted to heroin, or somebody who has alcohol addiction or methamphetamine addiction. Those are the typical models. And we go, well, you know what? I got to give you something, because if I don't give you something, you're going to go to the street and you're going to die off of a fentanyl overdose. So I'm going to give you, in place of heroin or fentanyl, I'm going to give you a little bit of Suboxone, which is a mixed agonist. It's going to fulfill some of your receptors, and I'm going to then use that to help you. With methamphetamine, I might be using something like baclofen, or I might be using some of the other drugs. For alcohol, I might be using benzodiazepines. So harm reduction is the concept of, I'm going to give you a little bit of something, activate that receptor to keep you okay, and then I'm going to try to wean you off. I'm going to use habit formation to fix this. But there's a difference. Sugar is a little bit different. And you can't use that classic addiction model. Now, certainly some people do, and I don't have any issues with it as in terms of that. And the harm reduction approach for the addiction model with food is people use artificial sweeteners to say, well, we know that if I give you a little artificial sweetener, maybe you can have a Diet Coke, or maybe you can have, and I don't mean to use the word Diet Coke because it's I'm not referencing Coke as the issue, but an artificially sweetened beverage if you like sugar sweetened beverages. Or maybe you can have a keto cookie with this artificial sugar, and maybe it'll fulfill. And it will. I mean, it's certainly a bridge that you can consider, and that is the harm reduction approach. But I would posit that there's another approach for this. The other thing is to recognize that addiction and loneliness are tightly linked. And I'll give you the example of the classic study done on rats. And this is the origin of our entire addiction model. They put rats in a cage, and they gave them the opportunity to drink water, or they gave them the opportunity to drink basically morphine. The rats in the cage selectively drank the morphine till death. And they said on that basis, rats exposed to morphine will selectively drink the morphine to death. Therefore, they become addicted. And therefore, morphine is bad. That was the basis of the repatriation of troops from Vietnam to the US, where they said, you know, we've got a lot of addiction going on in Vietnam in our armed forces, maybe 40%. And if we bring these people back to the US, we're going to have issues there. We're going to have addicts walking the streets. I'm not sure we should do that. We got to figure something out. But they went ahead and brought them back. And lo and behold, when they brought them back, their addiction rates weren't 40%. Even though they were using daily in Vietnam, in the US, the addiction rate was no different than the US population of 3 to 5%. And so they asked themselves the next question: well, why is it that they're addicts in Vietnam, but they're not addicts here? What's going on? And they did another rat study. This time they took the rats and they said, okay, we're going to put the rats in a bigger cage. We're going to put some other rats to play with. We're going to give them an enhanced environment that they can run on treadmills and play hide and seek. And on one side, we're going to give them water. On the other side, we're going to give them morphine. We'll see what happens. Lo and behold, the rats tried the water. The rats tried the morphine, ignored the morphine, and spent the rest of the time playing with the other rats, having sex, running up and down these trails, and drinking water, and lived a long time. And none of the rats really went for the morphine. So it turns out that it's more than just the exposure to the drug. The drug is certainly necessary, but underneath this is the loneliness and the separation from society that further isolates us and creates the paradigm within which that dopamine searching occurs. And it's that isolation that's fundamental. And so that's one of the other things that I look at closely when I deal with patients with carbohydrate addiction and processed food addiction. I try to get rid of their isolation and loneliness.